All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever, technically, supplemental episode of the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. Mike, you ready to talk about this Nintendo Direct from
Yeah,
February 8th, 2023?
let's talk about Nintendo for
So,
once.
yeah, right. It feels like it's always so few and far between with them. Real quick, over on the podcast Twitter, we put up a poll kind of trying to gauge people's reactions, and thus far the Twitter vote has it sitting at 47% of people voted the direct. They gave it a letter grade of a B. I'm curious what you thought. It was a fairly jam-packed 40 minutes. I mean, a lot of things were technically announced. Some things were given more time or like more of a trailer, whatever. But nonetheless, I'm curious. What did you think of the direct?
Yeah, first I just want to pitch that if you get to the top of our poll, you get 1,000 extra points and a one up. Um, so I was among the 47% that voted a B.
Okay.
Um, I will say for a Nintendo broadcast, I agree that it was jam packed. I mean, for what it's worth, you know, some of the games, I saw and I was just like, why?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this felt like it was substantial. I guess it was their whole first half of the year in announcements. Um, so that's a good sign. Uh, I, I think there are relatively few surprises, which I think is going to surprise a lot of people that know me. Um, I guess the thing that surprised me the most was Game Boy
Yep.
and Game Boy Advance getting added to the Virtual Console.
Yep.
Um, it's funny because Justine was actually watching with me at this point, and she's like, "Oh, these are all like games that I used to play because they had, basically Game Boys and the Dreamcast when they were growing up." Um, and so now we'll probably have to get that, which I think is part of the expansion,
Yeah. It's part of like the Nintendo Switch Online Plus tier. Like
right?
there's the two tiers, and it's the higher one. Yeah.
But the regular Game Boy and the Game Boy Color is part of just the base tier. I think is what they said.
Yeah. I couldn't tell because they showed it like previously they had shown like NES and SNES are on the base tier, and then like they would just show just the 64 on the upper tier. But obviously, it's understood that you get Game Boy Color or excuse me, NES and SNES. But what I noticed about when they were talking about this, they showed the Game Boy Color or Game Boy, I forgot which, on the base tier, but then they showed it again along with the Game Boy Advance on the upper tier. So I couldn't tell if that meant certain Game Boy games would be only
Mm,
available on that upper tier or not. I don't know. So
that'd be a very Nintendo move.
that would require me to do a little more digging that I haven't done yet. But um, yeah, I too was surprised by this. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in there.
Um, when they got to the Game Boy part, I'm fairly certain I threw my hands up in the air twice in this episode, like in a good way. The first time was for the Game Boy announcement because I said, "Oh my God, Metroid Fusion is going to be on there,"
Yeah.
and they went through all like the videos of the games are going to be there, and they were like, "No Metroid Fusion." And that's when I put my hands down. But then it got to the end, like scroll
hmm
bar of games coming out soon. And the first one was Metroid Fusion. I was like, "Thank God it lives on."
Love it.
So that was honestly really exciting. Um, the second time I threw my hands up in the air was when Metroid came on the screen again.
hmm
With the Metroid Prime, I think I'm I don't know if you can consider this a remake or a remaster. I mean, the game is mechanically the same.
They called it a remaster.
Okay, yeah. Really all it needs. I mean, that game was way ahead of its time.
Oh,
Uh,
for sure. Literally watching the gameplay of it. I mean, I get that like, you know, it is enhanced and like is going to look better, but I mean, ridiculous for a game that came out 2001? Is that?
that sounds right.
Yeah,
It was
that's
very
crazy.
I think it was like a GameCube launch window game.
Right.
Yeah, it looked really good. And I'm not gonna get it.
Oh,
And I'm sure that's very surprising.
that is. I'm surprised.
So here's the thing. I have it's part of the reason I got my Wii U. Um, I have the trilogy on Wii U.
Okay.
In the past year, I had been playing Metroid Prime on that. And even on the Wii U looks really good and plays really good. So uh, I'm probably not going to get it right away because I'm relatively far in the Wii U version.
Sure.
My only like holdup is the Wii U version is motion control,
Oh,
which frankly is not that bad. Um, the worst part is just like turning in like a 360-degree motion
sure.
because you have to like move the controller left or right. But other than that, it's really not that bad. It's still got the same like lock on feature that they were touting during the direct.
Mhm.
So, I mean, aiming really isn't that big of an issue. And on the digital store, it's $40, which if you've never played the game before or you don't have other copies of the game, I think is an amazing deal because I mean, it is very much so a $40 game still. Um I just don't think that's worth it to me. Now, if they come out with like a collector's edition physical copy,
Mhm.
I would reconsider, but I don't think that's in the cards.
Yeah, they haven't said. They just said if the physical copy. They shadow dropped it, so it went live yesterday. The physical
Yeah.
copy releases February 22nd.
I think the shadow drop is both really awesome
Mhm.
and also a kick in the teeth.
Because you just didn't have time to prepare.
No, because like people have been Metroid fans have been asking for information on this
Yeah.
for so long. And like being a Metroid fan is so frustrating because you just never know what's happening.
Right.
And so like just once and from what I saw on Twitter, I'm not alone in this thought. Just like give us some information. But then also Metroid Prime 4, I think 2 nights ago, Metroid Prime 4 pre-orders were taken off of Amazon
Yeah.
when, Tears of the Kingdom went up. So everyone's just like, "Okay, well, now what? Like, is this the best we're getting is
Right.
remastered Metroid Prime?"
Yeah.
So, it's cool they shadow dropped it because obviously that's very exciting, and hopefully that gets some people to play it. Just kinda felt like a kick in the teeth.
No, I hear you. Um, I think so. This is now we've had two events. We had the Microsoft one a couple weeks ago where they shadow dropped Hi-Fi Rush, and now
Mhm.
uh, you had Nintendo do the same thing. So I I'm a big fan of that like move, right? I understand what you're saying about Metroid,
Mhm.
but just in general, when you talk about a game, just like there is nothing better than when people are up on stage at E3 and they go and you can play it later today, and it's just like that's sick, that's sick.
I I would rather have that than, like, a release date.
Yeah,
Like, I would like to know that it's coming, maybe, like, a launch window, like, within a quarter. I mean, that gives you 3 months.
yeah,
And then, yeah, they just do, like, a quick direct or something, and then, "Hey, it's there. Go play it."
yeah.
Um,
It'd be sick.
and that's not what I'm upset about with Metroid. Like, I
No,
didn't need
I
a
hear you
release
100.
date.
percent Yep.
It's that it was like I don't even know that this was technically ever confirmed. Like, it was very
No.
heavily rumored. I think it may have leaked, but, like,
Right. And then you have the fact that like we don't know anything about Metroid 4 or Metroid Prime 4, sorry. And it's just like they just love to not give you information. I hear you 100%.
you know,
Uh so you're, I guess, just unfortunately a fan of all the wrong things. Metroid
I
and Splinter Cell.
just in general in life. Um, yeah. Other than that, I mean, definitely jam-packed full of games. Um, I'm trying to think if there are any, like, surprise games out there. I came into it a little bit late, so I did not see the Pikmin 4 gameplay.
Uh-huh.
Um, but Justine and I were kind of watching, like, another video, and Pikmin came up, she's like, "Oh my god, I wanna play that game." So, sounds like we'll probably be getting Pikmin. Um, kind of cool that they are coming out with, like and it's funny, I think we just talked about this in our last episode, with Mario Kart 8, uh, totally new course.
Yep.
So that's kinda cool.
Yeah. And I don't know if we talked about it during the episode or not, or if we were talking a little bit after. But they announced, you know, I think across, I think they announced um, 4 DLCs, 3 DLCs. I don't know. I can't remember if all of them are on um, the like Nintendo Switch Online Plus or whatever, but Mario Kart is for sure. And they announced the final wave of that. I think the final wave or just wave 4. But then they also, what you were talking about, announced the Game Boy Advance being on there, and yeah, it's a really really good value for a Nintendo fan. Like, um, I honestly think it's potentially better than Game Pass
Oh, hanging up.
and PlayStation Plus because the 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 back catalog that Nintendo has is so absurd, and I just think there's ridiculous value there. So
Yeah.
it's like it's truly nuts. I mean, obviously you're playing old games in these scenarios, or getting um bonus content for a few current games, whereas the appeal of like Game Pass is new releases. But strictly looking at like value, I almost think like the volume is that you're given. But again, it's a matter of like, do you like old games or do you care about the new games? But I don't know. I think there is a really, really good, strong value there for the online plus or whatever it's actually called. And it's the cheapest of all of the like online subscriptions.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think that just kind of goes to show the strength of Nintendo and that their games are so timeless.
Yep.
Because yeah, I mean, I would say like even though it's mostly the same franchises, there's probably more games actively on like the virtual consoles that I'm excited about than like Game Pass.
Right.
And again, it's hard to compare. You said it perfectly because Game Pass is catered more towards new games. Um, but Nintendo is catered more towards old games. Um, I think the whole paradigm is funny though because Nintendo's like you can't actually find copies of these games, so like here's your
I'm
best
trying.
bet.
I'm trying.
Oh, you wanted a real copy of Metroid Fusion? Too bad.
Yeah. Uh yeah, I think um it's funny. I was actually talking to Chris, 1S Chris, um, like right after the direct. Um, and basically just said that like this is such a par for the course, or should just be basically like what they do every single time is just
Mhm.
like take that vice grip that they have on nostalgia and just like squeeze it a little bit harder because it works. It never doesn't work. I think I did that double negative right. Um, so
It's dude, it's game over once they bring GameCube to Virtual Console.
right. And I think a notable omission from the games that were announced for the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance being on the Virtual Console were all the Pokemon games. I think the only Pokemon game that was shown was the Pokemon trading card game for Game Boy Color. Um, in like the roll end of February, we'll most likely see a Pokemon direct, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see them announce that like yeah, just a matter of time before all of these classic Pokemon games are also in the library.
Did Nintendo 64 get the Pokemon
Stadium,
Stadium games?
I think both of them are on there now. Yeah,
Okay. I mean, it's hard to compare those to the baseline games, but I remember those being pretty prolific.
yeah, and I can't
Um,
remember if the original Pokemon Snap is a part of that as well. So that's
it
technically some other
is.
Pokemon games. Okay, yeah. So um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's
specifically like the main line, like blue, red, yellow, crystal, like being able to like go back and play those original instead of like just having to rely on like heart gold, soul silver to be able to go back and play that gen
it, and
is
I mean,
pretty
even
cool.
those are hard to find at this point, right?
Oh, very, yeah.
Yeah.
Chris said, let me just pull it directly what he said because I'm sure a lot of people share this sentiment. He said, honestly, just tell me I need to spend $500 for all of the old Pokemon games and I'll do it. And I said, let me check my spreadsheet. I think Soul Silver, Heart Gold, Black 2, and White 2 alone are more than that. Like to actually like go out and find in the wild. So like if Nintendo just did like a little like you know how they did like the Mario 3D All Stars where it was like Sunshine, um,
Yeah.
64 Sunshine and the first Super Mario Galaxy bundled together, ported to the Switch. Like if they did that, but it was a $500 value for every single Pokemon game, everybody like I don't know many people who wouldn't do that. Like people would be saving for weeks, months, years to be able to get that package.
I would need to buy, if Nintendo starts taking that philosophy, I need to absolutely buy stock in them before that happens. 'Cause I mean, you're absolutely right, and it's gonna cost Nintendo, in basically in layman's terms, no money to do that.
Right.
That's more or less all profit. You take out, the manufacturing costs and, the R&D needed to port it.
Hmm.
It's I mean, they're simple games. It's not like you're, recreating something in Unreal Engine. Like, it would be nuts, and people would pay $500. Honestly, just to know that I have them, I might even buy it as well.
Right. Yep.
I would do this I would well, I guess I wouldn't at this point 'cause I have all the games, but, I was gonna say I would do the same shit with Metroid.
Right. 100%. 100%. There's something about the nostalgia factor. Um, I mean, yeah, I've been working on building up like a classics collection. Um, it's been going very well. Uh, I just need to find a way to display all of it. But uh, it's just like there's something about knowing that you hold them and like own them in some capacity that like feels necessary, you know?
Right.
Um going back to the direct real quick. They announced a couple other um, basically like remasters and collections. You had Bat and Kados, which were two GameCube games that I didn't, I hadn't heard of until like a year or two ago. When kind of like looking back at like the GameCube, like these were games that I did not play, but were I think had like a pretty good like cult following at the very least, and are regarded as some of like you know great GameCube games. I also loved the like little teaser that they had for Professor Layton, which were I want to say huge on the DS, right?
Yeah.
Uh so I thought that was cool. No Detective Pikachu. Maybe during the Pokemon, but that got announced like 2018 and we still know nothing about that coming to Switch. um and then also there was the Don't Nod game, Harmony the
Yes.
Fall of Reverie. That looks really good. Love the art style. Um, Don't Nod. They're the people behind Life is Strange. Um, so expect this game to be basically similar to the Life is Strange games. But I thought that looked really good. So excited to see more about that.
And I think it was this game is going to be like a Switch release first.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah. Um, and then they also announced Animal Crossing. Uh, what was the new Animal Crossing called? I was gonna make a joke about it being the second one. Fantasy Life I, the girl who steals time. They were showing it and like literally like chopping the trees and how the trees looked just like Animal Crossing. But a little like
Yeah,
island life sim that probably has, I'm assuming, a little more to give you in terms of story than just like your like more casual Animal Crossing. But I don't know that for a fact. But that was a game that got shown off, and I'm sure uh, will scratch like an itch for many people, so specifically people who are fans of Animal Crossing. Um, and I know we talked about Pikmin, which I think looks really good. If you, I know you said it was the first thing, and you said you missed it, but definitely go back and check it out because uh, I think like visually it looks really good, and the gameplay actually looks pretty fun. Um, they showed more about Octopath Traveler 2, which I had heard really good things about the first one there. So, um,
that that was my dark horse game from this whole thing.
yeah.
It's a game that I saw and I was like, you know what? That game actually looks pretty fun. I might try the first Octopath because I feel like that's probably a free game somewhere.
And then you're going to be into JRPGs forever.
I'm working on it.
And then obviously the big announcement and the very final one was Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We got to see more of that, which is going to be Nintendo's first $70 game. Um, as I guess they make the jump to that price point as well. Not surprising at all.
Really?
That
You don't
they're
think that's in the least bit surprising?
No, I don't think so.
Interesting.
Do you?
Kind of.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't mean this negatively. I'm surprised it didn't wait a generation. Like, definitely saw it
So,
going in that direction,
oh
but
yeah. I understand what you're saying. I mean, I have seen a lot of people say that they think that this was probably like the last big event like solely focused on the current Switch. Like a lot of
mhm.
people are thinking that I think some people thought that there might have been an announcement of like what's next in terms of console during this. There wasn't, obviously. Um, but I think a lot of people felt very much like, yep, we're wrapping up this generation. Um, which I could see that. So
Yeah.
Zelda being the one coming out like tail end of the generation and being the $70 game, I guess that's the thing that was like, that doesn't surprise me. Such a big game, such like a big release, you know, it was bound to happen, right? And so, but I do understand what you're saying. Like, why not just wait until the like next generation comes out?
Um, I say that, but I also saw some commentary from people, mostly Xbox people, who were like, I couldn't imagine paying $70 for a Nintendo game. And to that, I also said, really? Like,
Yeah, dude, I really don't get the whole $70. I know we never really jumped in on that. I don't really understand the whole like debacle of the $70 price point
mhm.
and how is, okay, did you but when games were $60, did you pay $60 for a Nintendo game? If the answer is just no, then like okay, you just don't like Nintendo and like that's fine. But like Zelda of all games is like going to be worth the price of admission. Like I think a
You're
lot of
gonna get
people
more
go ahead.
you're gonna get more hours out of that game than you would a $70 NBA game.
Also just like great like content, like you know what I mean, like it's not even necessarily just solely about like the time you get out of it, it's like the overall game, the world and everything. Like the $130 collector's edition is probably like a better price point for the fucking game. Like
Mhm.
um but yeah, overall I thought this was a strong direct. I also gave it a B. I think that that falls kind of in line with it. uh Also, the B from me is more in spite. I'm like Paula from American Idol. I want to see everybody go to Hollywood. So typically I probably would have just given this an A. But no Mario baseball announcement, and to my core that hurts me.
Mhm.
We have gotten every single Mario sports game. Just allow me to get on my soapbox real quick. We have gotten every single Mario sports game except for Mario basketball at this point as well. Onto the Switch, we've gotten two Mario parties, though I believe they phoned both of those in. We've gotten Mario Kart, though I also believe they kind of phoned that in. We've gotten a Mario like RPG with Odyssey. We got a Paper Mario. We got a Luigi's Mansion. Fucking Wario got his own game. Truly, the only thing we're missing in terms of a Mario series, from what I can think of, is Mario Baseball. So super disappointed that was not announced. I truly had high hopes. I really had my like I had my expectations way too high probably for it, and so I was greatly disappointed when they didn't show it.
Yeah, I would say for me, a B on a Nintendo Direct is pretty much an A.
Because you
Um,
wouldn't pay $70 for a Nintendo game.
no. Listen, if they the reason I wouldn't give it an A is because they didn't say anything about Metroid Prime 4.
Right. Yep.
Until they do that, it's gonna be a B at the
Yeah.
highest.
Yeah. And yeah,
Um,
no Metroid news, automatic deduction.
Pretty much. I
Yeah,
mean, no
I hear
Metroid
you.
news at all, it's probably a C.
I hear you.
Um, but, I mean, if they came out with and said, like, "Metroid Prime 4 coming out later this year," and they said it was gonna be $70, wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah.
I would have paid $70 for
Dread.
Dread.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I thought it was objectively really good, the show, just for me, until there's news like that or, like, GameCube comes to Virtual Console or an actual Mario Party comes out or even just Mario Party content. I was
Yeah.
almost kinda surprised
Yeah.
we didn't see anything about that. I
For
mean,
like the
that's kinda
expansion.
bad news. Yeah.
Yep. That would have been perfect. I honestly I want to say for the most part, like just the announcement of like Game Boy and Game Boy Advance coming to the Nintendo Switch Online was like really what boosted the score for this for
Mhm.
me. Like they did that and I was like like wasn't even thinking about that. Like of course you bring that to the virtual console. The Switch is a handheld. Um I don't know why I never thought of it as a possibility, but like as soon as they did it, I was like, "Oh, that makes so much sense. That's such a good idea." Um I was talking to both sides of 1S plays because Jess also texted me during it because when they, I don't know if you noticed it, but when they were showing the games for and they were doing like the scroll, I clocked it immediately when they showed Golden Sun, and then got a text from Jess as I clocked it in all caps saying Golden Sun on the Switch. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. And I was like, yeah, I clocked it and instantly thought of you when I saw that. So, um, I thought that was just alone, literally like, okay, this is a win. This is a good direct. And then, um, I think a couple of other strong remasters, obviously Metroid. We get some more news around Legend of Zelda. Um, yeah, I thought this was really solid. And again, we only touched on like technically 40% of the show probably. I mean, the volume was ridiculous. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
um
it was really impressive.
40 minutes, jam packed. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, I would say definitely go back and watch it. Check out some of these other games. A lot of good stuff coming. Uh, but yeah, anything else on the direct?
No?
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us for this supplemental episode. Hopefully you enjoyed. Let us know what you thought. Uh, if you enjoyed this being broken off and kind of being its own thing, let us know. Maybe this is something that we'll kind of continue to do down the line. Uh, or if if you liked and weren't bothered by the fact that you had to listen to two separate things to kind of get the full week, uh, certainly let us know, since sometimes we record and then huge breaking news happens that we end up having to wait a whole week for. So maybe we'll play around with continuing to do stuff like this. But we do appreciate it. Go over to Twitter and at GGBG Podcast. You can find either the tweet about this episode or the tweet about the Nintendo Direct and let us know what some of your favorite moments were. Or, in case you forgot, you can also go to YouTube where this will be its own video and you can leave us a comment there as well. As always, we really appreciate it. Leave us a rating or a review if you can, and be sure to share with a mom who loves Tetris. And we'll talk to you next week.